There we are. Welcome. We're so glad that all of you here this morning with us. I too often forget, so please make note of the prayer requests that we have from the prisoners. And I think especially this time of year, many of them are heartfelt and good to keep them in mind. And the opportunity also for us to make a request. They love that opportunity to give back. And so I ask you to please make sure you do that. Also, the welcome booklets are in each pew. As you pass them, please let us know that you're here, and those next to you, gives you a chance to greet them. We're glad to have any guests with us today and look forward to joining all together in some fellowship time following worship.
One thing we have learned on our Advent journey is that it is better to not go alone. We live in a do-it-yourself culture that celebrates the individual, but faith is not something that we can do on our own. We need companions on the journey. We need others to support us and strengthen us and encourage us. We put our journey in the hands of many people around us, and although it is a risk, we are better for it. We learn to trust that someone has our back as we make this journey of faith.
Matthew reminds us that when God chose to come to earth the first time, God chose to trust in people to help make it happen. God trusted in Mary and God trusted in Joseph. In turn, we trust in God to be faithful to the promise and to sustain us through many others as we continue our journey of faith.
The candles of peace, hope, and joy are already lit. We now light the candle of love that represents trust as our circle is complete.
Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, that God may teach us the ways of peace, hope, joy, and trust.
confess before God and one another. Creator God, even in the midst of a season of joy, we must confess that there are times when we lose sight of what really matters. We get so caught up in our own plans that we neglect to look out for others. While we are anxiously awaiting Emmanuel and the hope that Christ's birth will bring, we often neglect to bring hope to those who are alone and hurting during this season of Advent. We are often so busy looking for the light that is to come that we forget to be the light for those who need it. For these times we ask for forgiveness. Let us take a moment to call to mind the places in our neighborhoods, communities, and the wider world where anxiety and pain have taken root, and which need our witness of hope. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. God's love never fails. God's mercies are new every morning. Therefore, take heart and be encouraged. God is not only with us, God forgives us. In Jesus Christ, we are forgiven.
As we in our gathering do provide sanctuary, let us also, in the presence of Christ's peace, offer that peace to one another. May the peace of Christ be with you.
Oh, here we go. All right, yes. Yes, here's the Advent stocking. You know, I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning worried about this. And I have a headache. So it's your fault. I noticed that you were late, and I was thinking maybe the Offertory won't be coming. That'd be great. I could just make up a story. Now I'm going to have to. All right, here we go. All right. Ow! No, just kidding. Oh, what is this? Oh. Thank you. Bless you. So this is a candy cane. So anyone can come up with a story about this? This is about Easter, right? No. Okay. Candy cane. So let's think about, there's a lot of different ways of thinking about Jesus. Now, we're going to be celebrating soon that Jesus' birth. That's Christmas Day, right? Yeah. So are you guys getting ready for that? Yeah. Christmas Day is going to be great, huh? So do you have a creche or do you have something like that at home? Do you have a stable and a manger set up at all? No? You do? Yeah. Have an angel? Yeah, that's good. You have an angel? Yeah? Nice. Cool. That's really neat. Ah, cool. So all kinds of things. We have 16 creches at our house. 16. And what's really cool about them is, so what we usually do is we put the wise men far away because they don't actually come until a little bit later. And so we move them closer and closer to the stable each day. So that's a really cool thing. But you know who's already in the scene by the stable? Shepherds. And this is something like a shepherd's crook. It reminds us of what shepherds might use as they do their shepherding, especially when Jesus was born and during that time. And some shepherds may use this now. The other thing that this reminds me of about Jesus is that Jesus is often called the Good Shepherd. So he is called the Good Shepherd, that he is the one who shepherds us to be people who are faithful and to follow God. And this also reminds me of how much candy and cookies there are to eat too at Christmas time. So I'm going to have to leave right after this because there's some goodies on my desk and I'm going to go eat them. However, let's keep our mind on Jesus, okay? And that's what we do here. We keep our mind on Jesus and the things that we learn about in terms of who Jesus was and is and who Jesus wants us to be. And Jesus wants us to follow him and share the love that he brought into the world. So how was that? Was that pretty good? Thank you for making this easy for me. I really appreciate it. I'll give this back to you because I'll eat it during the sermon otherwise. And we're actually going to continue this beyond Advent. Is anyone going to be here next Sunday? Maybe you should ask your parents. Anyone going to be here next Sunday? Yeah, you will be? Okay. You already had a turn? If someone has not had a turn that you know will be here next Sunday? No? Okay, then here we go. You will be here? She won't be. You won't be here. All right. All right. So who's going to be here next Sunday? All right, here we go. Here we go. And make it another easy one. So let us pray. Gracious God, we are thankful for this day, and we're thankful for the season of Advent where we prepare for Christ's coming. We thank you that you sent Jesus into the world, send Jesus into the world to be our good shepherd, to show us love and how to love, to show us your way and how to follow it. For all of these things we give thanks, and we ask you to help us as Christmas gets closer, that we'll be just a little bit patient before it comes. But on that day, we'll not only celebrate with family and with gifts and with food, but we'll also celebrate Jesus' birth into the world. Amen. Our epistle reading this morning is from Romans 1, and I'll be reading from the translation called The Message. I, Paul, am a devoted slave of Jesus Christ on assignment, authorized as an apostle to proclaim God's words in Acts. I write this letter to all the Christians in Rome, God's friends. The sacred writings contain preliminary reports by the prophets on God's Son. His descent from David roots him in history. His unique identity as Son of God was shown by the Spirit when Jesus was raised from the dead, setting him apart as the Messiah, our Master. Through him, we receive both the generous gift of his life and the urgent task of passing it on to others who receive it by entering into obedient trust in Jesus. You are who you are through this gift and call of Jesus Christ. And I greet you now with all the generosity of God our Father and our Master Jesus, the Messiah.
our gospel lesson this morning, we read from the first chapter of Matthew, starting at verse 18. Now the birth of Jesus, the Messiah, took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been engaged to Joseph, but before they lived together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. Her husband Joseph, being a righteous man and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, planned to dismiss her quietly. But just when he had resolved to do this, an angel of the Lord, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the child conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you are to name him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet. Look, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph awoke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took her as his wife, but had no marital relations with her until she had borne a son, and he named him Jesus. May God bless the reading of God's holy word. Well, the excitement and the anticipation is quite palpable, isn't it? For those of us with responsibilities, we look at how little time we still have left. And those awaiting that excitement, as we saw during the children's message, can hardly stand the idea of waiting yet another couple of days. Not unlike the anticipation of a baby's birth, is it? There's so much preparation. You're not quite sure you've done enough or the right stuff, and yet there's that realization that it will happen, ready or not, and it will all be okay, even if there are things not quite done. Our Advent wreath lighting readings have tracked our journey throughout these weeks, and it's called it specifically that, a journey. We began the first Sunday with rules for the road, going together as one body, working side by side and leaning into the grace of God every step of the way. And he said, we shall go in peace, and we lit our peace candle. As we journeyed into our second week, we acknowledged that every journey faces unknowns, and that we can get overwhelmed by the decisions and the worries. Getting lost is a real possibility on any journey. But we claimed hope for our journey, and our youth did an excellent job of reminding us of the hopes we have and the source of those hopes. Our hope is in the Lord. So we journeyed on, recognizing that journeys can get long. Our feet get heavy. The busyness overwhelms us, and we can get lost in the doing if we don't stay focused on the why, which is for the joy of it. We were reminded of the things that bring us joy, of the joy that Mary felt in being selected by God and by serving God in such an amazing way, and in the joy we experience in sharing God's love here at Zwingli, in our community, and in our world. This week is traditionally the week of love. And I really appreciate that the author of all of these readings this year, Derek Weber, added an interesting dimension to this Love Sunday: trust. Do we acknowledge enough the element of trust in our Christmas story? First, as acknowledged in our reading this morning, our faith journeys are stronger when we journey with others. We need others to support us and strengthen us and encourage us. And in doing so, we develop trust. Look at the trust God placed in Mary and Joseph to be the very ones in whose hands to place the infant. And my word, the trust each of them had in the God they had grown up loving, and the trust they shared with each other to take on that kind of responsibility. Have you ever wondered if God asked other people to do that before Mary and Joseph finally agreed? Just a thought. We know that trust doesn't just happen. Trust grows out of love, knowing we are loved, and showing a willingness to love back. That love creates bonds that never end. Very early in this Advent season, I don't know if it was actually Christmas music I was listening to. I'm pretty sure it was K-Love, the Christian station that I typically have on my way to church in the morning. The artist expressed in a song there how Jesus continues to live in his heart, and that's how he senses Christ's influence on him. You know how our brains work so fast you can't even trace all the places it takes you? Well, that's what happened to me very quickly. So I'm going to see if I can slow it down. Bob Cranlick had just died. And I was going past the Lutheran home, as I do most every trip that I make between church and home. And I was reminded of a truth that I came to understand and value during my years of hospice work. That when we care, when we connect, heart to heart, that connection remains. The more we love and trust and make room in our hearts for individuals, the stronger that connection. And the more we continue to feel connected, whether or not they're still with us. Some of you might remember years back, there was a young man named Matty Stepniak who had all kinds of health problems and as a little boy wrote amazing poetry and was published in a book called Heart Songs. Followed up with two of them that are on my bookshelf that I noted this morning. Made sure they were there. And it's full of poetry about life and love and heaven and the connections with people. And I'm sure that right now you are all thinking of some of those folks who've held a deep place in your heart. And you know that connection. Christmas season is a natural time to be thinking about them and the hold that they still have on you. Yesterday, having been the shortest day, and last night being the longest night, there were many places, at least there were some places in the community, I was at one in Quakertown, of a service called The Longest Night, specifically for the purpose of bringing comfort to those who struggle with the loss of loved ones or jobs, security, independence, the many losses that we experience in life. It's an important time to remember the needs of them. The question, excuse me, the question Question I want to ask this morning, as I pull you back from where I just sent you on those side journeys here, is the connection that you have for who we're focusing on during this holy season. When I was about 10 years old, our family hosted an exchange student from Australia, which was fun to have someone from down under during the winter. He was quite amazed. He just couldn't believe he could actually walk on frozen water. He did. But the thing that I remember most about Bob Genders and his stay with us was that he sang with my family during our Christmas program at our little church that year. And what we sang was an old-fashioned hymn. It's no longer in any of our modern hymnals, with really old English kind of words, you know, the thous and the thys. It went like this. Thou didst leave thy home and thy kingly crown when thou camest to earth for me. But in Bethlehem's home there was found no room for thy holy nativity. Oh, come to my heart, Lord Jesus, there is room in my heart for thee. I had absolutely no concept at the time what those words would someday mean in my life. But during the hard parts of my journey, and hopefully of yours, when there's been space carved out in your heart to know and love, make room for Jesus, not as some far-off historical authority, but as a friend and a guide and a source of love, that connection is always there, just as it is with so many of our loved ones. And just as surely as you can hear the voice of a friend or a family member commenting to you or chiding you or urging you or supporting you, you could hear Jesus urging, Elaine, you know what you need to do. You know how you need to help. Go ahead. I've got your back. You've got this. Be gracious. Yeah, I love when he reminds me of that one. Speak love louder. Yeah. Whatever. I frequently don't have the confidence in me that Jesus does, but he never fails me. And he certainly won't fail you. Joseph went to bed certain he knew what he was going to do about that pregnant Mary. Let her down gently and get out of her life. He awoke with a new understanding of what was going on and a renewed trust that God had his back. And in return, he proved God right, that he was the right choice to care for Mary and Jesus. What has God chosen us to do? Are we proving God's right choice in us? Jesus still seeks hearts he can live in. As we approach these final days of preparation for the celebration, can we give more thought to the space that we provide, the invitation that we extend, and the ways we maintain that connection with the living Christ that keeps us doing God's work? and trusting the ways that Jesus leads us every day. Can we all say, "Oh, come to my heart, Lord Jesus. There's room in my heart for thee." Amen.
I see the countless Christmas trees around the world below, with tiny lights like heaven stars reflecting on the snow. The sight is so spectacular, please wipe away that tear, for I'm spending Christmas with Jesus Christ this year. I hear the many Christmas songs I know you hold so dear, but the sound of music can't compare with the Christmas choir up here. I have no words to tell you, the voice is what they pray. It's beyond description to hear those angels sing. I know how much you listen, I can see the pain in your heart, but I'm not so far away, we're really not that far apart. So dry your eyes, I ask you, from a heavenly home above. Just enjoy my memory, cherish my endless love. Think of all the good times we spent around this time. No one can take those memories, just yours and mine. So have a Merry Christmas. You know I hold you dear. For I'm spending Christmas with Jesus Christ this year. Yes, have a Merry Christmas. You know I hold you dear. Remember, I'm spending Christmas with Jesus Christ this year.